the human princess faced the final battle without allies. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, but tonight the darkness seemed heavier, as if the void itself was aware of the danger approaching. The alien armada, a fleet so vast it could blot out entire star systems, was closing in. Every message from her scouts, every report from the colonies, had painted the same grim picture. Humanity was on the brink of extinction, and she, barely 20 years old, was the last hope of her people. Kayla's heart pounded in her chest, a mixture of fear and determination. She could feel the weight of her ancestors pressing on her shoulders, the generations of humans who had survived against impossible odds. Her father, the former commander of the Human Defense Forces, had fallen in the first wave of attacks, leaving her to carry both the crown and the responsibility. She clenched her fists, trying to steady herself. She knew she could not show weakness, not now, not ever. The station was quiet, almost eerily so. Engineers moved quickly along the corridors, making last-minute adjustments to the defensive systems. The hum of machinery and the occasional alert from the ship's AI filled the air. Kayla walked among her people, offering words of encouragement, but her voice felt small against the enormity of the threat. Every face she passed carried the same tension, the same fear she felt. Yet beneath that fear, she sensed something familiar: determination. Humans were not a species that surrendered easily. Her gaze returned to the holographic map hovering in the center of the command room. Red markers represented the alien fleet, and they were advancing faster than anyone had anticipated. Kayla studied the formations, tracing the lines of attack with her fingers. She had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, training with her officers, learning the intricacies of alien tactics. But this was different. She was not just commanding a fleet, she was commanding the survival of her entire species. "Princess," one of her senior officers, Commander Jaren, said, stepping forward. "The outer shields are holding, but the main defense grid won't last more than a few hours under their assault." Kayla nodded. "I understand," she replied, her voice steady. She forced herself to take a deep breath. "Then we will use what we have to buy time. And while we do, I will find a way to turn this to our advantage. Humanity has survived because we think differently. We adapt. We survive. That is what we must do now." Her words were met with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Kayla knew it was not just rhetoric. She had a plan. Using the remnants of alien technology scavenged from previous battles, she intended to modify the station's defenses in a way that the invaders would not expect. It was a risky move, but Kayla had always relied on human ingenuity. Even against overwhelming odds, humans had found ways to survive. Hours passed like minutes as the station's crew worked tirelessly. Kayla moved from console to console, adjusting parameters, issuing orders, and monitoring the alien fleet's movements. The tension in the command room was almost unbearable. Every alert, every signal made her heart skip a beat. Yet she refused to let fear control her actions. Fear could kill faster than any enemy, and she would not let it. Finally, the first wave of alien ships emerged from hyperspace, a glittering wall of metal and energy. Kayla's breath caught in her throat. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever built, sleek and fast, their weapons pulsing with a strange energy. She could feel the enormity of the challenge before her. This was not a battle that could be won with sheer force. It required strategy, cunning, and the kind of bravery that defined humanity. Kayla gave her orders with precision, directing the station's turrets and defensive drones. She watched as the first alien ships fired upon them, energy beams tearing through the void. The station shook, alarms blaring as shields flared to life. Crew members scrambled to their stations, working in perfect synchrony. And in the midst of chaos, Kayla remained calm, her mind racing with calculations and possibilities. Hours turned into a day. The alien fleet pressed forward relentlessly, But Kayla's modifications to the defense systems began to show results. Her team had rerouted energy from non-essential systems, creating temporary shield boosts at critical points. Drones moved with surprising coordination, using feints and maneuvers that the aliens had not anticipated. Kayla felt a surge of hope. Maybe humanity could survive this attack, at least for a little longer. But hope came with a heavy price. Reports came in that communication with nearby human outposts had been severed. Attempts to call for reinforcements went unanswered. Kayla realized with a sinking heart that she was truly alone. There would be no allies, no reinforcements. The battle was hers and hers alone to fight. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Could one human, one princess, really hold back an entire alien armada? But then she thought of her people, of every life that depended on her courage. She thought of the engineers who had stayed awake for days, the soldiers who had trained for years, and the scientists who had risked everything to develop the weapons that now defended the station. She was not just fighting for herself. She was fighting for humanity itself. Kayla took a deep breath and addressed her crew once more. We may be outnumbered, we may be alone, but we are human. We are clever, resourceful, and brave. We will not go quietly into the night. We will fight and we will survive. Not because we are invincible, but because we are human and we never give up. Her words resonated through the command room. Crew members straightened, their fear giving way to determination. They moved with renewed purpose, their actions guided by Kayla's courage. The station, once a symbol of humanity's last hope, now became a beacon of resilience. As the battle raged on, Kayla worked tirelessly, adjusting tactics, rerouting power, and coordinating attacks. She moved with a sense of urgency, knowing that every decision could mean life or death. The alien ships were formidable, but they were not infallible. Kayla noticed patterns in their attacks, small weaknesses that she could exploit. Using those insights, she devised maneuvers that allowed her forces to strike back, damaging enemy ships and forcing them to retreat temporarily. Night fell on the station, though in space, night had no meaning. The stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggle below. Kayla paused for a brief moment, looking out at the galaxy. She allowed herself a small smile. Even in the face of overwhelming danger, she felt the unmistakable spark of hope. Humanity had survived worse, and they would survive this too. But she knew this was only the beginning. The alien armada would not give up easily, and Kayla would have to be smarter, faster, and braver than ever before. She was alone, but she was not powerless. With ingenuity, courage, and determination, she could turn the tide of this battle. She could protect humanity, even if she had to do it alone. The hours stretched into another day, and Kayla never stopped moving. She oversaw repairs, directed attacks, and inspired her crew. Every success, no matter how small, was a victory. And in those moments, she felt the undeniable truth of what it meant to be human. Even when surrounded by darkness, humans could shine. They could survive, they could fight, and they could hope. As the first signs of the second wave of alien ships appeared on the horizon, Kayla tightened her grip on the railing of the observation deck. She whispered to herself, a quiet promise in the vast emptiness of space. I will not fail. Humanity will not fail, not while I breathe. And with that, she turned back to the command room, ready to face whatever came next. Alone, without allies, but with the heart and mind of every human who had ever dared to survive. The final battle was coming, and Princess Kayla would meet it head-on. Princess Kayla stood in the control room, the glowing holographic displays casting a pale blue light across her determined face. The alien fleet had returned, larger and more organized than before. Hundreds of ships swarmed toward the station, their energy weapons cutting through the void like streaks of fire. Kayla's mind raced as she studied their formation. Each wave seemed designed to overwhelm, to crush any resistance, yet she refused to give in to fear. Humanity had survived against impossible odds before, and she was determined that it would survive now. The station shook violently as the first salvo of energy beams struck its shields. Alarms screamed and lights flickered. Crew members scrambled to their stations, shouting over the din. Kayla's hands moved quickly across the console, rerouting power to critical shield generators and launching defensive drones. Every decision she made carried the weight of life and death for everyone on the station, and for all of humanity. She leaned closer to the holographic map, analyzing the movement of the enemy ships. They were fast, adaptive, and relentless, but Kayla noticed something: patterns. The alien fleet operated with precision, but they were predictable in their overconfidence. They assumed humans could not outthink them. That assumption was their weakness. Kayla smiled faintly, a spark of hope lighting her eyes. She had a plan. "Princess," Commander Jaren called urgently, "they're targeting the outer shield generators. If those fall, the station will be exposed." Kayla's jaw tightened. She thought quickly. Divert all non-essential power to the outer shields and activate the drone decoys. Make it look like our defenses are weaker than they are. They'll focus on the wrong targets. The crew moved with precision, following her orders without hesitation. Kayla watched as the first wave of alien ships adjusted their attack, falling for the ruse. Their fire struck the decoy drones, leaving the real shields intact. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Kayla knew that even small victories could become turning points if humans held their nerve. Hours passed with relentless attacks. Kayla barely slept, moving from station to station, checking systems, giving orders, and reassuring her crew. She observed the alien ships, learning from every movement, every tactic. Humanity might be outnumbered, but humans were clever. Humans could adapt. And Kayla intended to prove that tonight. She noticed a gap in the alien formation, a blind spot in their perimeter. A daring idea formed in her mind. She could use one of the station's smaller ships, retrofitted with human engineering and ingenuity, to strike at the heart of the fleet. It would be risky. The ship was underpowered compared to the alien vessels. But Kayla trusted her own skills and the brilliance of human ingenuity. "Prepare the vanguard," she ordered. "I'm going to take it through the gap in their formation. If we can disrupt their coordination, it may buy us enough time to strengthen our defenses." The engineers looked at her in disbelief. The vanguard was not designed for solo attacks against a massive fleet, but Kayla's determination was infectious. Slowly, they nodded, their fear replaced with resolve. They had all seen her ingenuity in action, and they trusted that she could turn the impossible into reality. As the vanguard prepared for launch, Kayla suited up, feeling the familiar weight of her armor. She took one last look at the command room. "Hold the line," she said softly, her voice carrying a quiet strength. "Humanity depends on you." The small ship lifted off with a roar, disappearing into the darkness. Kayla's hands flew over the controls as she navigated through the blind spot in the alien fleet. The stars streaked past her as she maneuvered skillfully, using gravity slingshots and energy pulses to avoid detection. Every move was calculated, every decision crucial. She reached the center of the alien formation and unleashed the ship's limited weapons. Energy pulses struck the enemy ships, creating confusion and forcing them to break formation. Kayla moved quickly, exploiting every opening. The alien fleet, confident in their superiority, had not anticipated that a single human pilot could create such disruption. Chaos rippled through their ranks, and for the first time, Kayla saw a glimmer of hope that humans could survive this night. Meanwhile, back on the station, her crew took advantage of the disruption. Shield generators were strengthened, defensive drones repositioned, and energy weapons recalibrated. Kayla's actions had given them breathing room. The station held firm, resisting the relentless attacks that had threatened to overwhelm it just hours before. Kayla pushed the vanguard deeper into the fleet. Her small ship darted among the massive alien vessels, striking quickly and retreating before the enemy could respond. She relied on every trick she knew: decoy signals, rapid maneuvers, and even the unpredictable nature of human creativity. Every success was a reminder that humans could think in ways the aliens could not. Every failure was a lesson learned, quickly applied to the next maneuver. Hours turned into a full day of intense combat. Kayla's body ached, and exhaustion gnawed at her mind, but she could not stop. The survival of her people depended on her, and despite the fear, there was exhilaration in the fight, a reminder of the indomitable spirit of humanity. She was small, alone, and yet she made a difference that no one else could. The alien fleet began to regroup, trying to restore order after the disruption. Kayla knew she had to do something decisive. She spotted the flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and command systems. If she could strike it, even temporarily, the ripple effect could throw the entire fleet into disarray. Kayla maneuvered the vanguard carefully, weaving through the enemy's defenses. Her pulse raced as she approached the flagship, calculating every angle, every possibility. She unleashed a precise series of energy pulses, targeting the flagship's shield generators. The massive ship shuddered under the impact, forcing its crew to divert power to repairs. Other ships faltered, unsure how to respond to the sudden chaos. For a moment, Kayla allowed herself a brief smile. She had done it. One human, alone in a small ship, had disrupted an entire alien armada. It was proof that human ingenuity, courage, and determination could defy overwhelming odds, but victory was temporary. Kayla knew the flagship would repair its systems, and the fleet would soon recover. She needed a new plan, one that could buy humanity more time. She studied the enemy ships, looking for weaknesses she could exploit. Patterns emerged, aliens followed strict protocols, relying on efficiency and logic. Humans, on the other hand, were unpredictable. Kayla realized that unpredictability was her greatest weapon. She executed a daring maneuver, using the vanguard to draw the flagship's attention, while smaller enemy ships were lured into a trap. Energy beams collided, drones intercepted attacks, and the battlefield became a chaotic dance of movement and strategy. Kayla's mind raced, thinking faster than any AI, faster than any alien commander. She was a single human, but she carried the ingenuity of her entire species. Back on the station, her crew watched in awe as the alien formation struggled to maintain order. Kayla's actions had given them a fighting chance. Engineers patched critical systems, soldiers prepared defenses, and the station's AI recalculated optimal strategies. All of them were inspired by her courage, a reminder that even one determined human could change the course of a battle. As the battle wore on, Kayla grew tired, but she refused to slow down. She continued to dart through the enemy fleet, striking where it hurt most, exploiting weaknesses and creating confusion. She relied not on brute force but on intelligence, agility, and unpredictability. Every successful maneuver reinforced her belief that humans could survive this night, even alone. The alien fleet began to pull back slightly, surprised by the relentless resistance and unpredictable tactics. Kayla knew it was not a retreat but a temporary regrouping. Yet it was the first sign that humanity could fight back. One human alone had forced a massive alien armada to reconsider its strategy. Kayla finally returned the vanguard to the station, exhausted but triumphant. She stepped out of the cockpit, her legs shaking but her spirit unbroken. Commander Jaren and the crew greeted her with admiration, their fear replaced with renewed determination. Kayla smiled faintly, knowing that the battle was far from over, but the first major victory had been won. She walked to the observation deck, looking out at the distant stars. The alien fleet lingered, waiting for another opportunity to strike, but Kayla felt a spark of hope. Humanity was not defeated. Even alone, even outnumbered, humans could endure, adapt, and fight back. She whispered to herself, a quiet promise in the stillness of space. We are human. We survive. We will fight and we will endure. The night stretched on, filled with tension and anticipation. Kayla knew the aliens would return, and when they did, the stakes would be higher. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. One human had changed the course of an entire battle. One human had reminded the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. And as the stars twinkled in the distance, Princess Kayla prepared herself for the next challenge, ready to face the alien armada again. She was alone, but she was not powerless. She was human, and that alone was enough to turn the tide. Princess Kayla stood on the observation deck, staring at the alien flagship hovering in the distance. The massive ship loomed like a dark mountain against the starry void. Its hull shimmered with energy shields that seemed impossible to pierce, and its weapons bristled with power that could destroy entire colonies in seconds. Kayla knew that if humanity was to survive, she would have to strike at the heart of this ship. The station could hold for a time, but alone, it could not defeat the armada. The flagship was the key, and she was the only one who could reach it. Kayla returned to the command room, where Commander Jaren and the engineers were coordinating the station's defenses. She spoke clearly, her voice steady. "We have held them back, but this cannot continue. I will take the vanguard and infiltrate the flagship. If we can disable its main systems, we may turn the tide of this battle. I will not fail." The crew exchanged anxious glances. The vanguard was small and lightly armed, not designed for a solo assault against a colossal enemy vessel. But Kayla's determination was infectious. Slowly, nods of agreement passed among the engineers. They knew she was the best hope humanity had. They trusted her instincts, her intelligence, and her courage. Kayla suited up once more, the weight of the armor and weapons familiar against her body. She felt the adrenaline pumping, but she also felt a calm determination. She had faced overwhelming odds before, and her human ingenuity had seen her through. Now she would face the ultimate challenge. She climbed into the vanguard, the small ship designed for speed, agility, and cunning rather than brute force. The ship lifted off the station, disappearing into the void. Kayla guided it toward the flagship with precision, weaving through the remaining alien vessels. Every maneuver was calculated. Every decision mattered. The flagship's sensors were powerful, but Kayla relied on human unpredictability, using sudden changes in trajectory and electronic interference to avoid detection. As she approached the massive ship, she studied its surface. There were entry points, maintenance hatches, and shield gaps that humans could exploit if they moved quickly and cleverly. Kayla pinpointed one such location and prepared to make her move. Her fingers danced over the controls, activating stealth systems and cloaking signals. The vanguard shimmered and seemed to vanish from the enemy's sensors, a small advantage that could mean the difference between life and death. Kayla maneuvered the ship carefully, slipping past energy barriers and automated defense drones. The flagship's interior was a labyrinth of corridors, machinery, and alien technology. She guided the vanguard through maintenance tunnels, using human intuition to navigate the unfamiliar and alien. Every turn and calculation tested her skills, but Kayla was relentless. Humanity had always survived by thinking differently, and she relied on that same ingenuity now. Finally, she reached the core of the flagship, a massive chamber filled with humming energy generators, control consoles, and pulsing power conduits. Kayla took a deep breath and assessed the situation. She could see the control systems that coordinated the fleet, the very heart of the Armada's power. If she could disrupt these systems, even temporarily, it would create chaos and give the station and human survivors an opportunity to strike back. Kayla began her work carefully, connecting hacking devices and rerouting power through carefully chosen conduits. She had studied alien technology extensively, learning from every encounter, every scavenged piece of equipment. Human problem-solving was unique, creative, flexible, unpredictable, and she relied on that now, using techniques no alien could anticipate. Alarms suddenly blared. The alien crew had detected her presence. Kayla's heart raced, but she did not panic. She moved quickly, executing contingency plans. Small energy pulses disabled surveillance systems, and decoy signals created phantom intrusions in other parts of the ship. She had trained for this. Humans adapted, humans survived, and Kayla refused to fail. Time seemed to stretch. She worked tirelessly, bypassing locks, rerouting energy, and carefully dismantling security protocols. Every second mattered. She felt the pulse of the alien ship through the controls, a living, humming entity that resisted her intrusion at every turn. But Kayla was determined, guided by human ingenuity, and the knowledge that countless lives depended on her success. Finally, she reached the central control console. The energy readings showed a fragile balance. One wrong move could trigger catastrophic failure, destroying both the flagship and the Vanguard. Kayla's mind raced, calculating every variable. Then, with steady hands, she initiated the sequence. Energy conduits began to reverse polarity, power flows were redirected, and the systems controlling the fleet began to glitch. Chaos spread through the flagship almost immediately. Automated drones faltered, weapon systems misfired, and energy shields flickered. Kayla's eyes widened as she realized she had succeeded. The Armada's coordination was collapsing. Ships collided, shields overloaded, and panic rippled through the alien forces. One human, using intellect and ingenuity, had thrown an entire fleet into disorder. But Kayla knew her time was limited. The alien warlord commanding the flagship would soon recognize the sabotage. Reinforcements and countermeasures would follow. She had to act quickly. Using the Vanguard's speed, she maneuvered through the chaos, exploiting the gaps she had created. Energy beams streaked past her, narrowly missing the small ship, but Kayla remained focused. She was one step ahead, relying on her instincts and human creativity to stay alive. Meanwhile, back at the station, sensors registered the disruption. Commander Jaren and the crew saw the alien fleet falter, their formation breaking apart. Hope surged through them. Kayla's actions had given them a fighting chance. Humans had endured overwhelming odds before, and now they were witnessing proof that one determined human could make a difference. Kayla moved deeper into the flagship, targeting critical systems that powered the energy weapons. She used a combination of hacking, manual intervention, and precise energy pulses to disable them. The massive ship shuddered, its once immovable power faltering. Kayla's heart pounded with both fear and exhilaration. Every action she took was a gamble, but she trusted human ingenuity to guide her. Suddenly, an alien patrol ship entered the chamber. Kayla reacted instantly, activating emergency shields and using a series of decoy holograms to confuse the enemy. The patrol miscalculated, striking empty space, and Kayla slipped past them. Her movements were swift, deliberate, and unpredictable, every hallmark of human adaptability. She reached the final control array, the core system linking the flagship to the rest of the Armada. Kayla hesitated for a moment, knowing that the next step could be dangerous. Then she pressed forward, initiating a sequence that would overload the power distribution. The flagship convulsed with energy, alarms blaring throughout its interior. Drones malfunctioned, weapons shut down, and the alien fleet's cohesion disintegrated. Back at the station, humans watched in awe as the enemy ships faltered. The disruption caused by Kayla's infiltration gave them the opportunity to strike. Drones and defensive turrets fired with precision, targeting weakened points in the alien fleet. For the first time in weeks, humanity had the upper hand, not because of superior numbers, but because of human courage and ingenuity. Kayla felt the vanguard trembling under the stress, but she held on, guiding the ship carefully. She had achieved the impossible. A single human had infiltrated the enemy flagship and disrupted the Armada's command structure. Yet, she knew this victory was fragile. The alien warlord would retaliate, and she could not stay inside the flagship indefinitely. Using a final series of calculated maneuvers, Kayla navigated the Vanguard back through the chaos, avoiding collapsing ships and energy explosions. Her hands moved with precision, guided by training, instinct, and the indomitable human spirit. Every twist, every turn brought her closer to safety. She emerged from the flagship's interior, the small ship battered but functional. Kayla allowed herself a moment to breathe, to feel the exhilaration of success. One human had changed the course of an entire battle. One human had reminded the galaxy that humanity could not be underestimated. The alien fleet was still powerful, still dangerous, but it was no longer invincible. Kayla knew the next phase of the battle would be even more dangerous, but for now, humanity had the advantage. Back at the station, crew members cheered as the Vanguard returned. Kayla smiled, exhausted but proud. They had survived another day, and it was her ingenuity, courage, and determination that had made the difference. Kayla walked to the observation deck once more, looking out at the stars. The alien flagship was damaged, its energy flickering. Other ships drifted, confused and disorganized. Humanity had endured against impossible odds, and it was proof that even one determined individual could change the fate of many. She whispered softly, a quiet vow to herself and to her people. "We are human. We survive. We endure. And we will continue to fight no matter the odds." As she gazed into the darkness of space, Kayla understood the truth she had always known. Humans were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most numerous, but they were clever, adaptable, and courageous. And in the heart of one human princess, those qualities had become a weapon more powerful than any alien fleet. The battle was far from over, but Kayla was ready. She had faced the enemy head-on, alone, and had turned the tide through human ingenuity. She would continue to fight, to inspire, and to lead. Humanity's survival depended on it, and she would not fail. The stars shimmered in the void, silent witnesses to the courage of one small human against an entire armada. And Princess Kayla prepared herself, knowing that the final challenge awaited, the battle that would determine the fate of humanity itself. Princess Kayla stood on the observation deck of the station, her eyes fixed on the damaged alien flagship hovering above the horizon. The battles had raged for days, testing every ounce of human skill, ingenuity, and courage. The alien armada was fractured, its formations broken, and its fleet struggling to maintain order. Yet Kayla knew better than to believe the fight was over. The alien warlord was cunning, ruthless, and would not yield without one final strike. Humanity's survival rested on her shoulders alone, and she felt the weight of it pressing down on her like a gravity well. The station's crew moved swiftly, their confidence renewed after Kayla's daring infiltration of the flagship. Engineers repaired critical systems, recalibrated shields, and prepared defensive drones for the expected retaliation. Soldiers manned energy turrets, scanning the void for signs of enemy movement. Even the station's AI, once programmed only for defense, now seemed to anticipate Kayla's strategies, adapting to the chaos she had created. But she knew that no system, no matter how advanced, could replace human intuition and courage. Kayla gathered her officers in the command room. "This is it," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "The enemy will try to strike one final time. They will send their best ships, their fastest fighters, and their deadliest weapons. We cannot rely on numbers or technology alone. We must rely on our minds, our creativity, and our courage. Humanity survives because we adapt, because we think differently. Tonight we show them what that means." Commander Jaren nodded. "We trust you, Princess. You've led us this far. We will follow your orders to the letter. Kayla gave a small, determined smile. Then let's make sure this ends in our favor. The first wave of the final assault appeared moments later. Alien ships, more numerous and aggressive than ever, descended on the station like a swarm of metallic predators. Energy beams lanced through the void, striking shields and tearing across the station's hull. The station shuddered violently and alarms screamed as systems came under fire. Kayla's hands flew across the controls, rerouting power, launching drones, and giving orders with precision. Every second counted. Every action mattered. Kayla directed the station's defenses like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Drones darted between enemy ships, decoy signals confused targeting systems, and energy pulses struck critical points on incoming vessels. Yet the aliens adapted quickly, forcing Kayla to anticipate their moves, to think 2 steps ahead. This was a battle of wits, not just firepower. Amid the chaos, Kayla noticed the alien flagship attempting to stabilize its systems. The warlord inside would not give up. She realized that the key to victory was not just defense but offense. Humanity could survive if the flagship was neutralized completely. Kayla formulated a plan, a coordinated strike using the station's weapons, the Vanguard, and her understanding of alien technology. She climbed into the Vanguard once more, her small ship ready for precision strikes. The crew cheered quietly, knowing that Kayla's actions could turn the tide. She smiled faintly, feeling the familiar surge of determination. Humans were not invincible, but they were clever. They could improvise, adapt, and endure. That was their greatest weapon. Kayla guided the Vanguard toward the flagship, weaving through the chaotic battlefield. Enemy ships fired relentlessly, but she relied on agility, instinct, and clever maneuvers to avoid destruction. Her mind raced, calculating every angle, every possibility. She activated stealth systems, decoy signals, and energy pulses to confuse the alien sensors. The Vanguard shimmered and appeared to vanish from enemy tracking. Finally, she reached the core of the flagship. Its massive energy systems hummed with power, and Kayla could see the control consoles that coordinated the entire armada. She maneuvered carefully, knowing that a single mistake could mean the end of humanity. Her fingers flew over the controls as she rerouted power, disrupted shields, and disabled weapon systems. Chaos spread through the flagship. Drones malfunctioned, energy beams misfired, and enemy ships faltered. One human alone had thrown an entire fleet into disarray. Back at the station, the crew seized the opportunity. Defensive turrets fired with precision, targeting weakened alien vessels. Drones swooped in, striking critical systems and creating confusion. The alien fleet, once organized and terrifying, now struggled to regroup. Kayla had not only survived but had turned the tide in humanity's favor. The flagship shuddered violently as Kayla continued her sabotage. Energy conduits sparked, weapons shut down, and systems controlling other ships flickered. The alien warlord realized the threat too late. Kayla had exploited their reliance on logic and predictability, using human creativity and courage to disrupt their operations. One human mind had become a force that no alien fleet could anticipate. Kayla's heart pounded as she pushed the Vanguard through the flagship's core systems. She activated a final sequence designed to overload the ship's main reactors. The flagship convulsed with energy, alarms blaring louder than ever. Kayla held her breath, guiding the small ship through collapsing corridors and dodging energy surges. Every move was precise, every action a testament to human ingenuity. The flagship began to fracture under the stress. Sections of the hull tore apart, sending debris into space. Energy beams misfired, creating chain reactions that disabled other vessels. The alien fleet struggled to maintain order, its cohesion unraveling rapidly. Humanity had turned the impossible into reality. Kayla finally guided the Vanguard away from the flagship, dodging falling debris and malfunctioning drones. She had succeeded in neutralizing the heart of the alien armada. Her body ached from exhaustion, but her spirit soared. One human, armed with determination, courage, and ingenuity, had changed the course of a galactic war. Back on the station, the crew erupted in cheers. Shields held, systems stabilized, and the remaining alien ships began to retreat. Humanity had endured, not because of superior numbers or weapons, but because of the ingenuity, adaptability, and courage that defined them. Kayla's actions had inspired everyone, proving that humans could face overwhelming odds and still survive. Kayla stepped out of the vanguard, her legs shaking but her spirit unbroken. She walked to the observation deck, looking out at the shattered remnants of the alien fleet. The stars twinkled above, indifferent to the struggle below, yet Kayla felt a quiet satisfaction. Humanity had survived another day, and the spark of hope burned brighter than ever. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Alone, without allies, facing an enemy that outnumbered and outgunned her species, Kayla had relied on the traits that made humans unique: intelligence, creativity, adaptability, and courage. Each decision, each maneuver, each calculated risk had carried the weight of her people's survival, and against all odds humanity had endured. Kayla turned to the crew, her voice carrying over the comms. "We have fought, we have endured, and we have survived. Today, humanity has shown that even one person can make a difference. We are clever, we are resourceful, and we are brave. This is the heart of humanity, and it will never be broken." The crew responded with renewed determination, their fear replaced with pride and hope. Engineers repaired the final damaged systems, soldiers maintained readiness, and even the station's AI seemed to hum with confidence. Humanity had survived the impossible, and they knew that their resilience was far from over. The alien warlord had fled, his fleet fractured and scattered. He had underestimated the courage and ingenuity of one human princess, and it had cost him dearly. Kayla knew that they might return one day, but for now, humanity had claimed a hard-fought victory. One human, alone against a fleet, had reminded the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Kayla gazed at the stars, her mind already considering the future. Humanity had survived this battle, but there were still colonies to protect, survivors to aid, and lessons to learn. She would lead, guide, and inspire, knowing that the spirit of one determined individual could ignite a movement. Humanity was not strong because of technology or numbers. It was strong because of ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to give up. She whispered softly, a promise to herself and her people: "We are human. We survive. We endure. We fight. And we will continue to shine, no matter the darkness that comes." The stars seemed to twinkle in response, silent witnesses to the courage of one princess and the resilience of a species. Kayla had faced the final battle without allies, yet she had not faltered. She had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not in its weapons, but in its mind, heart, and spirit. And as she looked out into the vastness of space, Princess Kayla knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had survived against overwhelming odds, and the galaxy would never forget the courage of one human who had refused to give up. The void was quiet once more, but the legacy of bravery, intelligence, and hope would echo across the stars. Humanity had endured, and it would continue to endure. One human princess had faced the impossible and had turned the tide for her entire species. In the silence of space, Kayla smiled, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, humanity would prevail. Not because it was strongest or fastest, but because it was clever, brave, and unyielding. And that was a truth no enemy could ever destroy. The human princess faced the final battle without allies.